Etienne, thank you so much for coming on, dude. How you doing?
Pleasure, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude.
Really
I'm
appreciate it.
I'm really excited to get into the conversation today. We're going to talk about little entrepreneurship, um, which you know very well. But before we get into that, I want you to share a little bit about who you are.
Sure.
Um, kind of what brought you into entrepreneurship, if you will.
Yeah, sure. Um, so I help the owners of small law firms make more money, spend more time doing the things that they actually like to do, and build more resilient, stronger businesses.
Mm,
That's what I do for a day job. I'm a former CPA. I have a degree in accounting and a degree in computer science. And I've started over the years or helped to start close to 100 startups, which is a staggering number until you think about how often startups fail
mm,
and what people call startups.
mm,
Sometimes they're just ideas
yeah,
that we played around with for a little while, and sometimes they're full-on businesses that we spend a year or two trying to work, and they end up with various levels of success. Um, Currently, I also co-own with my wife, Locals Barbershop and Salon here in Colorado Springs.
shout out locals.
Yeah,
Got me faded up.
looks beautiful, man. We've had that. This is our 11th year owning that one, and it's taught me a lot.
Yeah.
And then over the years, I've owned a lot of other businesses um, and been involved in a lot of other projects. So
Yeah,
that's where I get my experience.
that's beautiful. Yeah, it's a journey, and that's kind of what I want to get into today is like, for those people out there, there's a ton of people that in this audience for the free fortitude, it is very much focused on entrepreneurship, and
Hmm.
I think aspiring entrepreneurs
Okay.
as well. And so, yeah, speaking to those aspiring,
Hmm.
like thinking that they want to just ditch the job, ditch the boss. They want a better quality of life,
Mm.
right? Where do they start?
Oh, well, so that's a great question. Um, and sometimes that's the scariest part, right?
Yeah.
Right. Pulling that trigger.
Mm,
So there's a number of things I'd say about that. But first, I mean, the first question I would ask is, should you start?
mm,
Okay, so in America today,
mm-hmm.
we're in this 2025, right? Where we're at right now in this moment in time.
Yeah.
We've sort of idolized the self-made entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
right? Richest guy in America is kind of a self-made entrepreneur, right? The president was an entrepreneur of sorts. You know, we're constantly hearing about entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it. There's,
Mm-hmm.
if you go on Facebook right now, like half of my feed is full of videos of people telling me about how I can buy their program and become a millionaire. Those are everywhere,
Yeah.
right? You got them all. Like, and the names just change slightly every couple of years, but
Yeah.
it's the same old shtick,
Yeah.
right? Like, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, you should do this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think it's the you should do this that really gets to people.
Yeah.
I think you're sitting at your desk job and you wake up suddenly someday and you ask yourself, what the hell am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
Like, is really?
Yep.
And you sort of you compare
Oh yeah.
yourself to the scenes in the media and the scenes on social media.
Well, and the people around you too,
Hmm.
like your circle of influence, right?
And you hear about the highlights
Mm-hmm.
and you hear nothing about the lowlights and you think I want that.
Yeah.
Or more than that, not that you just want it.
Yeah.
You think I should be doing that.
Right. The shitting all over yourself, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's almost a form of shame,
Mm-hmm. It is.
right? Where I'm ashamed that I haven't done
Mm-hmm.
that.
Look at that person. They're so much further ahead.
Hmm.
You know, they've started their business. It's a level of success,
Hmm.
but at what cost?
Exactly. Yeah, at what cost? Like I think we have to weigh the entrepreneurial journey
Uh-huh.
with the other opportunities we have in our lives. I know lots and lots of super successful, wealthy
Mm-hmm.
people who work for others.
Right.
It's not impossible to make wealth doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the most famous people in the world that you've never heard of invented things, ran things, control things, um, earn money doing fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily entrepreneurs.
Right.
I hate it. I wrote an article years and years and years ago arguing with a guy about overusing the term entrepreneur. It
Mm-hmm.
has a very specific definition.
Yeah.
And it talks about assuming the risk
Mm-hmm.
for an undertaking. It doesn't talk about being creative. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't talk about finding solutions. It doesn't talk about managing other people. You can do all those things as an employee.
Right.
Entrepreneurship is about assuming the risk.
You're the one responsible.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
your life is on the line. The nice thing about being an employee is that you're not at risk,
Right.
and you're really not,
Right.
which is why I sort of I dislike some of the ways that not to get political, but some of the times when laws are trying to too heavily protect workers, I'm like, they're really not at risk. Protect the entrepreneurs
Mm-hmm.
who are way more at risk, have
Right.
far more to lose. And I've told employees this before. I'm like, look, everybody in my industry is hiring right now.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone.
Mm-hmm.
If we failed tomorrow, you would go out and get another job.
Yep.
Instantaneously.
Yep.
You'd have another job before you leave the building.
Yep.
You just call someone and they'll be like, yep, I'm hiring. Absolutely, come work for me. I will lose my house. My kids will lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my reputation will be demolished.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll still have debt that I won't be able to get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
I may have to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
Right? The risk is substantial.
Yeah. No one talks about when your back's up against the wall
Right.
as an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
and when stuff is hitting the fan. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's really good. So it's almost as if we're kind of wrestling right now with the topic of entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think how do you gauge whether or not you should or shouldn't?
Oh, that's a great question. That is a great question. And I think it's the most beautiful part of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, I could confidently say that my favorite thing about being an entrepreneur, and I've been an entrepreneur for, well, I started my first business in college with my roommate, and he's still running it today. That's 20 some odd years later, right? And so it's been in my blood for a really long time. And I have worked for other people over time to do something.
Yeah.
For a reason.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn something. I needed to achieve something. It was a stepping stone.
Yeah.
There were reasons why I worked for other people, but I was always an entrepreneur. And
Mhm.
here is the reason why I love entrepreneurship. Because it forces you to come to terms with who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You grapple with these kinds of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I?
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to work on in my life? What weaknesses do I have? What blind spots? What strengths do I have that I can lean on? What do I bring to the table?
Self-awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And more than that, you get refined in the fire, in the heat of the moment, in the pressure of the difficulty of your undertaking,
Mm-hmm.
in the uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
You learn faith.
Mm-hmm.
In the adversity, you learn resilience. In the conflict, you learn like how to have a strange peace
Mm-hmm.
when the world is just turbulent around you. Entrepreneurship is, for that reason, I recommend it to everyone.
And I feel like everybody in the audience right now is like, oh my gosh, like he just spoke so much truth in that one little time slot. I think that's huge. And so like, yeah, so gauging that though, right?
Sure, right.
Like I'm a young buck,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm willing to assume the risk.
Hmm. Are
Um,
you really?
and that's the
You think you
question.
are.
And so,
Are you really?
yeah. And so, how do you gauge that? How do you gauge, are you really?
Uh-huh. Yeah, are you really? Are you really? I mean, I think what we need to do is and that's why I'm grateful that you have a podcast like this.
Yeah.
Um because in some sense, I would say go listen to Uriah's podcast
Right.
and hear some of the stories.
Yeah.
And not just don't just listen to the stories of overcoming and success. Listen to some stories of failure.
Yeah.
Imagine to yourself that you put it all on the line and you lose.
Hmm.
There's a great poem by Rudyard Kipling called "If." Have you ever read it before? It's phenomenal. You absolutely phenomenal. I use it for all my boys. It talks about how to be a man. And the way that he talks about how to be a man, he's not a Christian, he was a humanist, but they're very Christian concepts.
Hmm.
It talks about the juxtaposition of things in every line of the poem, and it's fairly long, actually.
Hmm.
It talks about the juxtaposition of things. If you can do this, but not do that,
Hmm.
then you will become a man. And one of the things, one of the lines he says is, uh, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it all on one turn of pitch and toss and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss.
Hmm.
That's what it means to be a man.
Yeah.
That's what it means to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
If you can do
Thanks.
that, but can you?
Hmm.
Can you? Can you have your house? Can you lose your house? Can you move into a smaller house?
Yeah.
Can you have your car impounded? Can you have your reputation tarnished? Can you have an article written about you in the paper that
Hmm.
failed?
Hmm.
Can you go home and face your wife and tell her,
Hmm.
or your mom, or your investors
Hmm.
who happen to be your mom, who put real money in,
Yeah. Yeah.
that it's not working, that you're
Yeah.
pivoting, that you're canceling, that you're ending
Yeah.
that, and then can you get back up again?
Mm. Yeah, I think that's the big one is the bounce back, right? That
Mm.
is resiliency,
Yeah,
right? Being able to get knocked down 7 times and get back up,
right.
right?
Eight.
Eight.
Get back up eight. That's
Yeah.
key.
And getting up is almost I would say almost harder than taking the blow.
Well, it is, and here's the thing, and I know that you're that faith is one of the big things in
Oh
your
yeah,
podcast. So let me
absolutely.
tell you about that. There's an interesting thing, and I teach this to my sons all the time. I have four boys, by the way. You know this,
Yeah.
but your
Yeah.
audience doesn't know. I have
Sure.
four boys. My oldest is now graduating high school this year.
Oh dang.
My youngest
It's
is
getting
11.
real.
So we're like in the midst of this conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. This is a lesson I learned a long, long time ago, and it's probably one of the reasons I'm an entrepreneur, and also one of the reasons I'm still sane today, is because I've learned the secret of this lesson. Okay, so this is an important one for entrepreneurs, for men anywhere, for faith in general. It's a big one.
Mm.
Here's the deal. We as Christian men, especially walking through life, are going to be attacked,
Hmm.
right? The devil hates us. The world hates us.
Hmm.
Even just other people who are in the world but see what we have and how we live despise us because men love darkness because their deeds are evil, and so they hate the
Hmm.
light, right?
Yeah.
And so there's that.
Hmm.
There's that constant conflict pressing up against us,
Hmm.
which creates the temptation for us to fall,
Hmm.
to make a mistake, to choose a mistake,
Hmm.
to deliberately do something that we know is evil, or to just not do what we knew was right.
Hmm.
We're tempted. We're weak. We're we're slow to act. We're easily enticed. And in entrepreneurship, sometimes that shows up as greed. Sometimes that shows up as pride.
Hmm.
Sometimes that shows up as selfishness. Sometimes that shows up, I mean, sometimes that shows up in sexual infidelity. Like
Hmm.
there's all kinds of areas where as an entrepreneur, you're being attacked
Hmm.
to tear you down. Partly because just because it's a difficult thing to do.
Hmm.
Like entrepreneurship all on its own is hard to do.
Right.
And so you're constantly being tempted to take shortcuts or to not do it, or to do it in a way that seems like it will give you something, but it's not the right way to do it. And you know it.
Yeah.
But also because the devil hates you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he doesn't want to see a son of God succeed.
Still kill and destroy, bro. It's
Absolutely.
his mission.
Well, absolutely. And if you really become successful as an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur, you have a powerful platform upon which to work,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you have tools and resources at your disposal that can allow you to do things that the average Christian soldier just has to go out and find an entrepreneur to help him
Right.
with,
Right.
right? Which is why so many missionaries go and fundraise.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas an entrepreneur who becomes a missionary funds himself.
Right.
I mean, like, it's just the way it is.
Yep.
So, and that's a whole different conversation about whether that's right or wrong, but
Yeah.
it does give you a lot of tools. And so you become a more effective, in my opinion, opponent
Mm-hmm.
of the world. A more effective. I mean, look at the Hobby Lobbies, look at the Chick-fil-A's,
Mm-hmm.
look at how in the face of the world they're able to stand because they have deep resources
Mm-hmm.
that they can just be like, oh yeah, you're going to take me to court. Well, I'm going to hire my own attorney
Yeah.
and take you to court right back.
Watch
right.
this.
And they're able to do some
Yeah.
good in the world for the rest of society.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just making sure that the laws are just and stuff like that. That's
Right.
what we stand for as Christians, is justice. Okay. But back to my point. You're tempted.
Yeah.
We're constantly beset. And sometimes we fall.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we make mistakes.
Yeah.
Okay. There are two battles, not one. We always think that temptation is the battle.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have either won it or lost it. And once I lost it, I'm now disqualified. I'm a loser. I'm disqualified. Shame
Mm-hmm.
buries you.
Mm-hmm.
It just buries you. And you say, yeah, everybody who said I couldn't do this, I can't. All those voices in my head were right. You know, I'm dead.
Spiral down.
I'm a sinner.
Yeah.
I'm unworthy.
Yeah.
Yes, you are. All those things. Absolutely. You're weak. Yes. However, the second battle is knowing all that about yourself and knowing that Christ knew that when he died on the cross for you.
Yes.
As he was hanging on the cross, knowing that you would do this very thing that you have done, knowing that even if he didn't know that you actually would, but that it was possible, just knowing that you had the penchant for it, knowing that you would be put in this position and that there was a potential that you would fall. And he died for you anyway. And he shed his blood for you anyway. And he offered you the free gift of salvation anyway. And he gave you grace and forgiveness, knowing all of this. Will you now, in your sin, accept the free gift of salvation?
I think that's the struggle for
That's
a
the
lot
second
of
battle.
people. Yeah.
It's hard.
And I think what you're speaking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, the first part of it is, can you navigate shame?
Right.
Can you navigate the blows? Can you receive them and take them? And then through adversity, with fortitude, like, stand up and believe who you are.
Well, yeah, exactly. Who God says you are. That's the battle.
Yeah.
Will you believe what he says about you, or will you believe the voice of shame in your life? You're given a choice. And I tell you, get up.
Yeah.
I tell all the men out there, get up.
Yeah.
Get up the second time. Get up the third time. Get up the 20th time. Yes, you will fail. Do you think that we are shocked? Do you think that we are surprised as your peers, as your mentors, as your family, as your friends? Do you think that we are shocked that you fell? Do you think that somehow prior to the revelation of your sin, that we thought you were some uber special, super perfect
Holier
person?
than thou.
We did not.
Right.
You should not be ashamed.
Right.
Christ did not think that about you. You should not be ashamed.
Right.
Get up and win that second battle. Get back up and do it again. And so it comes back to entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
This becomes part of what we do in entrepreneurship, right? Do you have the ability to do that? Because you're not just going to be a faith battle. It's going to be a real world, livelihood battle, a financial battle, a political battle, a social battle, right?
Mm-hmm.
In all these spheres, you're going to have to get your teeth knocked out, lay on the mat for a while, and before the count,
Get back up.
get back up.
God dang, dude. It's so true though. Like it's tough to, take blow after blow and be on the mat like you said, realizing in your head if you have consciousness, like
Right.
I gotta get back up, right? Like I gotta keep going. Okay, so and then there's the other part of the audience out there that say yes, Etienne. Yes, I am able to do that.
Okay. All right.
Where do I start?
Yeah. All right. So step one is overcoming fear, in my opinion. Step one, overcoming fear. I have a saying. In fact, I have a cuff here where it's literally written on here. It's my life saying. It says, "Get out of the boat."
Mm,
So you remember the story of Peter walking on water with Jesus?
mm-hmm,
Remember that story? They're out. Jesus has stayed behind,
mm-hmm,
and he sent the disciples ahead in a little boat
mm-hmm,
across the Sea of Galilee, and in the midst of their traversing this sea, an extra large lake, really, um, a storm arises, and they're struggling through the storm. And they look over and see a form walking on the water, and they
mm-hmm.
eventually recognize it as Jesus, and it terrifies them.
Absolutely.
Well, I would be terrified
Yeah,
too. I mean, like, it's terror, right? Like,
absolutely.
oh, I've seen a ghost,
Yeah,
but it's an actual ghost. Like, it's not like a figment of my imagination.
right.
This is terrifying.
Yeah.
Um, and Peter tests it by saying, "Lord, if that's you, call me out onto the waves, and I will walk on the water to you."
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus, probably with a small smirk of humor, I think, says, "All right, come on." And Peter climbs out of the boat and walks on the water to Jesus. All right, when I read that story, there's a lot of things you can learn from that story, but I read something and I noticed it finally after reading it about 1,000 times. I realized that there were 12 disciples, right?
Mm-hmm.
Peter was not alone in that boat, and 11 of them did not walk on water. Peter is the only recorded human being outside of God himself, Jesus, who walked on water. And it's because he took the chance.
Mm-hmm.
It's because he asked for it. It's because when he was called, he stepped, he moved, he did something dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And he trusted that God would help him to get through that danger. But he was willing to take the step that was dangerous, the
Mm.
getting out of the boat.
Yeah.
I ask people all the time, I say, which is safer, being in the boat or standing on a raging ocean where you know you can't walk on water,
Mm-hmm.
but some miraculous thing is tenuously holding you there? And which is safer?
Yeah.
Why do you think all the guys stayed in the boat? Well, the answer is, from the human perspective, it is definitely safer to be in the boat, right? That's where you know, it's where you're comfortable, it's where
Mm-hmm.
you've been before. It's a context that you're familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
You understand that as long as I'm in the boat, I will not sink to the bottom of the ocean, and when I come out of the boat, I have to swim.
Yeah.
That's what happens. That's
Yep.
probably since childhood they've all known that, right? But the truth is different than that.
Mm.
Um, there's a great book called a great entrepreneurship book called Zero to One, by Peter Thiel, and he says he asks everybody a question: what is true about the world that's not actually true? Everybody he hires, he asks them a question:
Mm-hmm.
what is true about the world that's not actually true, or a thing that people believe about the world that's not actually? And the interesting thing is, this is one of those. This is one of those things. Is it actually safer to be in the boat with a couple of planks between you and the bottom of the sea, or to be out on water with the hand of God underneath you?
Mm,
Is it functionally safer? Like actively, actually,
mm-hmm.
materially safer? Where is
Mm-hmm.
the safer place to be?
Mm-hmm.
And when I realized that it's actually safer to be wherever God has called you to be
Mm-hmm.
and to not trust the structures that man has built to try to give us the illusion of safety,
Mm,
then that's when I had the confidence to get out of the boat and to go wherever God has called me to be.
mm,
I don't need a regular paycheck.
right.
I don't need benefits. I don't need a 401k. I know that the future, wherever I'm going with Christ, is the right place for me to be.
That's powerful, dude. That's freaking powerful. So yeah, so like a lot of us would think that the W-2 is the way, right? Like because predictable paycheck, 401k, like benefits,
Mm-hmm.
my family's taken care of,
Right.
but maybe not.
Well, and for a lot of people, it is the
Yeah,
way, and
yeah,
that's fine. Like, and I say a lot to people, and I coach entrepreneurs all the time. I work as outsourced CEO and CFO to these small law firms, like on a daily basis, and I
yeah,
have dozens of them that I work with personally, and hundreds in our network. And so sometimes I run up against somebody who I've been coaching, who's struggling, who's working hard and doing all the things, and their mindset is just they're unwilling to do the things that entrepreneurship requires.
mm-hmm,
And I sometimes ask them, why are you doing this? Like, shouldn't you go back and get a regular paycheck? You can make
mm-hmm,
phenomenal money. I mean,
mm-hmm,
lawyers make great money even when they're working for somebody else. You get the predictability. You don't have any of the headache. You don't have any of the extra things you have to do. You get to focus on your lane and stay in your lane. And so
mm-hmm.
sometimes that is the answer for a lot of people. And I just want to, we talked earlier about this. I want to bust that bubble.
Yeah,
We have idolized entrepreneurship today,
mm-hmm,
um, in this moment, and it should not be idolized.
mm-hmm,
It is a path.
yeah,
It is a way forward. And when I talk about getting out of the boat and following Jesus wherever he goes, I do mean that you should do that. But if he is at an organization,
right,
if he is having you work for somebody else, do
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Right? Do not mistake the metaphor of getting out of the boat and following Jesus wherever he goes to be only entrepreneurship.
right. We're not shitting here.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. We're not shoulda, woulda, coulda.
yeah,
We are obedient. That's the trick. We
mm,
are obedient wherever that is. And if
yeah,
that means working for somebody. Okay. But with that aside, entrepreneurship is volatile. You don't get a regular paycheck. It goes up and down. You may get paid a lot this month and nothing next month.
mm-hmm,
Um, there are things you can do though to make it more predictable,
mm-hmm,
right? This is where guys like me come into play, helping someone who truly does want to do entrepreneurship. So, step number one, in my opinion, for a anybody who says I want to enter into entrepreneurship is first of all go and gather some information.
mm-hmm,
Find yourself some mentors, hire a coach, um, listen to podcasts,
yeah,
get a little education for where to start, how to do it, how to set it up so that you will be more successful. Because there really is an easy way for everybody to be an entrepreneur. And in fact, in historical time periods, everybody was entrepreneurs.
right.
It's only been since kind of the Industrial Revolution where we have
Corporations.
regular,
Yeah,
large corporations where you would find a regular career and you would dedicate yourself to working for somebody else for a long period of time. But you know, hundreds of years ago, several hundred years ago now, but hundreds of years ago, almost everybody was an entrepreneur of some kind. You applied a trade and you held yourself out as a tradesman to do that trade,
mm-hmm,
or you bought and sold goods, or you did all this stuff. But very rarely did you work for somebody else. You apprenticed for somebody else before you could go and do it on your own. But
right.
generally, you did it on your own. I mean, and so entrepreneurship, which we've idolized now today,
Yeah,
was the way of life,
yeah.
right? You are good. You have to take care of
That
everything.
was the only way.
It was the only way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so I do believe that even in today's society, and I've seen it, I don't need to believe it. I've watched it happen. I've helped it happen. I've caused it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That there is a systematized way to start a business that will reduce the risk of failure
Mm-hmm.
and increase your happiness, your well-being, your personal satisfaction, your finances, your happiness,
Yeah.
your control, everything that you're hoping for. There is a pattern that successful businesses follow, that successful entrepreneurs follow. And by learning from those patterns, by learning from what they have done and doing likewise, we can set ourselves up as entrepreneurs to be very successful
Mm-hmm.
with a high degree of certainty.
Mm-hmm.
Which is actually one of my areas of specialty, is looking into the future on their businesses, helping them with cash flow modeling and budgeting out into the future to help them make decisions before they get to places.
Right.
And the earlier you can make those decisions, the more you know about the potential for the future. You look at these early warning signs in your staff metrics. You look at these early warning signs in your cash flow. You look at these early warning signs in your marketing that tell you things are going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what things those are because you've been there before.
Mm-hmm.
And so, having done hundreds of startups in my career and
Mm-hmm.
having been well trained in this and well practiced in this, I've
Yeah.
seen it all before,
Yeah.
right? I've seen, oh, I'm looking at your financials right now. That tells me that X, Y, or Z is going to happen in 6 months. It
Mm-hmm.
tells me you're going to be out of cash. It tells me that this employee is planning on leaving. It tells me that, your customers are looking for something else,
Mm-hmm.
that they're shifting, that your market is shifting. It tells me that your environment, your industry, your market, whatever it is changing, and that
Yeah.
these new things are going to be happening to you now. And we can see the cycles and we know what they are. And so, being predictive gives an entrepreneur more confidence, which
Right.
is essential
Yeah.
because confidence helps you to become more resilient.
Right.
Right? It helps you to do the hard things because you're confident that you're making decisions based on the right kind of information.
Getting those wins.
Exactly.
All right. So shifting, obviously, you or I are not God, right? But I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the big questions out there, one of them is, when is the right time?
Mm, yeah.
When, like, yeah, there's the where do I start? But then there's like, is there a sign somewhere that will tell me when the right time is to jump off this cliff? No.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there is an answer, but is there something that you can say about the time?
Yeah, sure. So the time is obviously different for everybody. People have started businesses in the worst times and the best times.
Yeah.
Um, People have been successful in hard times and in good times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there are a couple of general rules to follow, though. All right. Um, Given what we know about life and our economy and people and their psychology,
Yeah.
I would say a couple of things about when the right time is. This is the kind of guidance I give to young men most of the time who are
Mm-hmm.
struggling with this because most of the time they've idolized entrepreneurship and they want to just rush out and do it,
Right.
which sometimes is okay. The earlier you start, um, you have a benefit. The later you start, you also have a benefit. So um, choose the benefit that you would prefer.
Mm-hmm.
When you start early, you have less to lose. When you have a big family and you have a big house and your expenses are high because
Yeah.
you've reached a certain level of a style of living,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes more difficult. Your nut is harder to crack.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a young man and you need $4,000 a month to survive, that's a lot easier to do than if you're married with kids and you
Right.
need $10,000 a month to survive.
A lot of mouths to feed.
That's a lot of mouths to feed. And it's a lot more money you got to make every month and pull out of your business every month in order to keep your family alive and going and happy and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So you have an advantage starting young. You also have a disadvantage, you know less. So the advantage of starting older is you have more resources if you've saved. You
Mm-hmm.
have more resources. If you've been saving for the last 30 years and now you decide to start a business, you have your own resources you can work with. right?
Mm-hmm.
You can pull out your retirement, you can borrow against certain things, you've got equity in your house, etc.
Mm-hmm.
You also know a lot of stuff. You've made a lot of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You can hire some people that you've worked with before.
Mm-hmm.
You're not jumping ship alone and rebuilding the wheel from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
You may be starting with a model you've already learned,
Mm-hmm.
copying what you've learned from 20 years in the industry,
Yeah.
right? Contacts, know-how, um, working in the industry may have revealed to you something that was lacking.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're starting a business that's right in the sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas as a young man, you're searching for an idea,
Yeah.
which is a terrible place to be.
Yeah.
I would rather have a team of people, and I say this all the time. I would rather have a team of people and look for an idea than an idea looking for a team of people.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say let's camp there for a second.
Yeah.
How important is the team? Like, I mean, entrepreneurship, there's a new term going around. It's solopreneur,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like,
Yep.
no, it's just me and AI.
Yep.
Like, I got
Yep.
this.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to rely on anybody. But I would beg to differ that that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you do it on your own, it's almost like a guaranteed to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Very few businesses that are just ran by one person and one person alone
Mm-hmm.
succeed.
Mm-hmm.
I can testify to that, right? Like,
Right.
so the question, how important is the team?
Yeah. Okay. So can we run a business solopreneur? You can, but it's in context.
Mm-hmm.
There's very, very few industries, all
Right.
of them being online
Right.
or tiny little businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could run a stand at the local market by myself,
Right.
but you've bought yourself a job.
Right.
You don't have a business. You're not an entrepreneur per se. You have a job that somebody else would do, anybody would do. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't yes, you may wear all the hats and all that stuff, but you really have a job. You have to be there. You got to run the desk. You got to do all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the limiting factor of it all. And you may be happy with that, and that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. I mean, pick it up and do it. That's fine. You can be a solopreneur. But it's in context, and you need to understand the context. You will not become Facebook as a solopreneur.
Mm-hmm.
You will not become Google. You will not become Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
You will not even become your favorite whatever. Like
Yeah.
pick the company. I mean, it's surprising. Some software platforms that I use have thousands and thousands of employees, and you wouldn't even notice.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even know it that they have so many employees, so many workers all around the globe
Mm-hmm.
working to make this thing look so simple and easy for me to just go online and download and pay a little thing, and
Right.
boom, like there it is. And they have thousands of employees. I mean, the team. So now your second question, how important is the team then,
Mm-hmm.
given that you want to do something that you could not do on your own,
Right.
which is most of it. The team is essential. It's more than essential. In fact, I would say the only person that's more important than your team that you literally have working for you is your spouse, which is actually more important, which I would consider part of your team.
Mm-hmm.
Your spouse, he or she, is your primary investor
Mm-hmm.
in terms of time, money, hope for your future.
Mm-hmm.
They're locked in it with you.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to team, think about your spouse first.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, I don't care. If you guys are serious,
Yeah.
they're jumping into this thing with you.
Absolutely.
They're depending on you to be successful, in
Yeah.
fact. They're hoping that you'll become successful.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have to work nights and weekends and not go on a date with them, they're investing
Mm-hmm.
in your success. So that's step number one, person on your team. If that person does not have the capacity for the wild swings of entrepreneurship, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Say that again.
If that person does
Yeah.
not have the capacity
Mm-hmm.
for the wild swings, the crazy ride that entrepreneurship is, then you need to rethink it.
Yeah.
One of the two. You either need to rethink being an entrepreneur or you need to rethink the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that to people who are hopefully dating and just trying to figure each other out.
Right.
But if you have determined already, I am an entrepreneur, this is who I am, this is where I like to be, this is what I want to do with my life, and they are more of the track of, that scares me.
Yeah.
I want the predictable.
Mm-hmm.
I want the steady. I want the known.
It's not going to work.
It will not work.
Mm-mm.
It will not work. I know from being an entrepreneur and being married for almost 26 years now, it is staggeringly difficult
Mm-hmm.
to navigate, even when your spouse has capacity for that. Mine does.
Yeah.
She's an entrepreneur in her own right,
Right.
but the fear,
Mm-hmm.
the uncertainty,
Mm-hmm.
especially I have 4 boys. Like our second biggest expense besides our house is their education.
Mm-hmm.
And then food to feed them all. Actually, sometimes those flip flop. And
How many cows do you buy a year?
we bought a cow and a half this last time. 1.5 freaking cows. Those enormous beasts. I have 2 freezers in my garage, completely full to the brim.
There you go. Nobody tells you about this guy.
Yeah, that's incredibly expensive. Oh man, it's like feeding an army. But you need your team on
Yeah.
board with you, and you got to start with your family. You got to start with your spouse. You got to start with um, them as your team.
Yeah.
And so evaluate that really carefully. Then, secondarily, of course, your the people you hire,
Mm-hmm.
and everything that I just said applies. But I want to say something specific about team. One of the things that I see too many entrepreneurs do is they hire people and they expect them to have the same drive and tenacity for the business that they have.
Yep.
That will not happen.
Yep.
Not just does not happen. That will not happen. And when you have that expectation, first of all, you will be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And second of all, they will be frustrated.
Yeah.
You will manage them poorly.
They'll ultimately end up leaving
They will be.
because of all the stress.
Uh-huh. I have lost more employees and been frustrated and surprised over the loss because I forgot that they are there for the predictability
Mm-hmm.
and that I am there for the unpredictability.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes being the entrepreneur and being the manager are 2 hats that are very hard to wear
Mm-hmm.
at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to wear them successfully, you have to remember that your job is to filter the noise away from your employees
Mm-hmm.
so that they don't see what's the craziness that's happening behind the curtain,
Mm-hmm.
the wildness that's just beyond the back of the camera,
Mm-hmm.
that's behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
that's not fit for stage
Mm-hmm.
because it's not.
Yeah, well, and two, I would say like as, as an employee, like that's going to create nervousness if you're bringing the problems to the table and that's all you're
Anxiety,
doing. Yeah. Like,
anxiety,
yeah.
high levels of anxiety for them.
Yeah, there's a trending song right now, My Anxiety, all over Instagram and Facebook. And it's like, yeah, that's so as an entrepreneur, as a business owner,
Mm-hmm.
you do have to be careful and balance that out. Yeah, address problems,
Mm-hmm.
but not like the ship's sinking.
Right.
Because then you're in trouble.
There's been a trend toward, and there was a trend for a while, and it was called I think it was called like open books, something like that. And the idea was that you would share the financial results of the company with the team,
Mm-hmm.
and you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that we learned over the years that you need to do it in a careful way. You're telling a story. And
Yeah.
you need to be careful what story you tell.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wild craziness. Like, I'll tell you this. My wife is a person who absolutely loves, even though she's an entrepreneur, she likes predictability.
Mm-hmm.
She's a concrete thinker, though.
Mm-hmm.
And so she likes dealing with problems in the moment. So if a problem arises, she immediately deals with it. So imagine the scenario. Both of us are doing our various entrepreneurial things, and a
Right.
text message comes in saying, here's a problem. A problem has arisen, and I don't know what to do with it. And her response is, aren't you going to deal with that right now? Aren't you going to respond to that? And my response is, nah, not yet. Not right away.
Yeah.
And you would not believe how many times, 5 minutes later, an hour later, the next day, I get a text back. Oh, never mind. We solved it. We figured it out.
It's almost like the problem works itself out.
It does.
Yeah.
People are intelligent and capable, and they remember the training, and they remember that you wrote it down already, and that you already told them 50 times before, and they freak out. And then
Hmm.
they realize that they shouldn't have freaked out, and they get over the emotional hump, and then they get into solving the problem, and they solve the problem. So when you're communicating with your team, of
Hmm.
course, if you showed them every text message that came through, they would think that the world is falling apart, and plus they'd be bouncing everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh man, I gotta go do that. Oh, we gotta go do this. Oh, we gotta do that. And I've learned over the years, no, you don't always have to.
Hmm.
You don't always have to respond. Sometimes you just go, nah, it's cool. I'm gonna let the ridges, like I'm gonna have like a good suspension system, on
Yeah.
a rocky road,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm gonna float with some of those.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily gonna adjust. I'm just gonna ride that one out.
Well, and if you address everything, you're gonna burn yourself out quicker than
100%.
yeah.
Build systems in place. I say this all the time to my members. Build systems in place to handle those kinds of things. Now that is really the journey of entrepreneurship.
Hmm.
You're going to be an entrepreneur. One of the things that it's getting a little off of your immediate
Yeah.
topic here,
You're
but
good.
this is the thing for entrepreneurs. There's three phases of entrepreneurship. Okay, there's the technician, there's the contractor, and then there's like the value architect. And I got this from a book I read by a guy named Rob Sleet a long, long time ago. And his idea was, okay, there's this technician, and you're good at what you do. Like, say, take an attorney,
Right.
and they're good at practicing law,
Hmm.
right? They can write contracts, they can stand in court, they can do whatever it is that they do, and they're good at it. They want to become an entrepreneur. So they open up a solopreneur where they are
Hmm.
now their own shop and they start offering these services on their own. And they
Hmm.
realize, wow, that's a lot of work because I
Hmm.
didn't realize that my former shop had somebody to answer the phones and somebody to book the appointments and somebody to do the billing and somebody to do the collections and somebody to do the sales. And then I just got freed up to do the legal work.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, now I have to do all those things myself. So, but I'm making good money.
Hmm.
I'm successful. So I'm going to hire somebody to help.
Hmm.
I'm a hire. So I hire some people, but now I have to manage people. And managing people is a very different skill than doing law. Like radically different.
Yep.
I own local barbershop and salon, and I was hiring for a manager once. And a girl come in. She had like 6 or 8 years of experience underneath her belt cutting hair as a hairstylist. And I asked her a question. I said, "Why do you want to be a manager?" And she said, "Well, somebody told me once that that's how I make more money as a hairstylist is by becoming a manager." Like it's a linear trajectory.
Hmm.
And it is not a linear trajectory.
I mean, that's
Trajectory.
that's how humanity thinks, though, right? Like, I
Yeah,
feel like that's the default, and yeah, it's just not the case. You're talking about people
exactly.
and glorify glorified babysitting. No.
Well, exactly. Like it's like psychology and
Yeah.
sociology and oh my gosh, yeah, herding cats sometimes. I mean, it's wild. There's a whole different skill set to doing that.
Hmm.
I've always said that there are actually two tracks at our barbershop. One is the management track and the
Yeah.
other is the technician track. And the two can make the same amount of money.
Do you think that's why people are so attracted to solopreneurship? Is because maybe they just don't want to deal with the people in the team?
Oh,
Do you
probably.
think that's why it birthed
I would
and came onto
say
the scene?
I would start any business that doesn't require people. If I could find a business right now that required no people of any kind
Right.
to run, I would invest in it in a heartbeat. I
Yeah.
mean, like truly,
Yeah.
they're rare.
Yeah.
And most of the time, they're already being run by successful, wealthy people who
Yeah.
realize that that's a great way to make money.
Yeah.
But there's very few of them out there.
Yeah.
You know, buy a machine and let it do its thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need maintenance and it doesn't need upkeep and it doesn't
Yeah.
need somebody to go and fill it with quarters or, restock it or anything.
Yeah. So in closing here, like to these people that maybe they're aspiring to be entrepreneurs, or maybe they're just like, maybe this podcast helped them realize like I am not cut out
Oops,
to be
sorry.
an
Maybe.
entrepreneur, you know.
Could
But like in closing, what's one piece of advice or one life lesson that you would want to leave with the audience today? I know that's a big one.
Yeah, it's a broad question.
Yeah.
Um, Well, I guess I mean keeping in our theme, I mean I would just summarize what we've already talked about. I would say first of all, um, learn about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be a lifelong learner. Um, the adversity of your life teaches you how to be tenacious. It teaches you
Mm-hmm.
how to be resilient. It teaches you how to get back up when you can take your knocks and you can just get back up and go again. Remember that the getting back up is part of the battle.
Mm-hmm.
It is the second battle. Remember that. Remember that there are two battles, that falling down is one, but getting up is the second. And the world, the devil, your competitors, your opponents, the people that hate you would all love to see you stay down.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get back up, it's infuriating to those who would see ill for you. It's empowering to those who are on your side.
Mm-hmm.
We've all seen the movies and the epic scene where the hero looks like he's down and out, but he crawls up one more time. You know, what was the end of the Avengers when Captain America has his shield broken in half and
Mm-hmm.
he's bleeding,
Mm-hmm.
and then suddenly the portals open up behind him, right? Like, how iconic is that? Be
Yeah.
that man.
Yeah.
Learn to be that person,
Yeah.
right? Don't be afraid. Don't let fear keep you down. Don't let
Mm-hmm.
shame keep you down.
Mm-hmm.
Know yourself well enough and know what's happening in the world well enough. Trust what God has in your life
Mm-hmm.
and the story that He's writing in you. And remember that it's always bigger than you would write it for yourself. So, like, write it big.
Mm-hmm.
Be like, step out of the boat and walk on the water,
Mm-hmm.
right? Go for the big stories. Take the chances.
Mm-hmm.
What's the worst that's going to happen to you? You're going to sink. Peter sank. Jesus reached down and picked him up.
Mm-hmm.
So
So good.
get back, you like take the chances. I
Yeah.
really do urge people, don't let fear control their life, take the chances. But don't be an idiot about it either.
Right.
Know yourself,
Right.
right? Taking chances can take a lot of forms. You know, you might
Mm-hmm.
switch jobs and move to another town and take another job. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
great. You might go into a field you didn't think you might apply for the manager position because actually you want to deal with people more than you want to deal with the technical side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like there's a lot of ways to take chances. It doesn't have to be quitting your job and, you know, putting it all on the line.
Yeah.
Hang out with some entrepreneurs and find out.
Yeah.
There's you know, it's a journey.
Yeah.
It's an adventure. There's a rhythm to it. There's a fun to the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Keep your eyes open and don't get don't get tunnel vision,
Mm.
right? I hope that a podcast like this opens people's eyes and says, "Man, there's a whole bunch I can do out there. I'm
Yeah.
not locked into anything.
Come on.
Like, let me explore some ideas.
Yeah.
Let me find some things out and collaborate with people. If you're not great at managing people and you know you'll need a team to make your thing work, hire a great manager
Mm-hmm.
or hire or you know one of the things I do for teams specifically, and that has been really helpful for me, is every place I've ever worked or every organization I've ever been a part of, I've always been subtly judging the people I'm working with and going like, oh man, they're great at that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna remember that.
Yeah.
You know, when I have an organization that I'm starting or a business that I'm starting or something that has need of that skill, I'm calling that person.
Right.
And I keep this little sort of short list in my Rolodex
Yeah.
of people I would love to keep working with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when the time comes for you to build that team, you have them all
You
there.
know the
You
people.
remember who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they will help you a lot. They will help you along the way. That will make it easier for you. You get to do it together with cool people. And it makes it more fun.
That's awesome, dude. Thanks so much for being here. Real quick, how do people get a hold of you? Like maybe they want some coaching with you, or they need some financial advice, or something like that. How can people connect?
Well, if you're the owner of a small law firm, I urge you, call me.
Okay.
Call me, call me, call me, call me before you run out of money. Call me before you drive yourself crazy. Call me before you get divorced. Call me before all that crap happens. If you're the owner of a small law firm, please call me. My email address is etienneh at howtomanage.com. So
Beautiful.
call me, please email me. I will, I can help you build a successful business as a lawyer. That's what I do for my day job. Yeah, anybody else can email me too if you want, you know,
Yeah.
advice or point in the right direction or
Yeah.
whatever. But
Dude. Well, thank you so much for coming today.
my pleasure.
And as always, forge on and stand strong.